understands the look that he gave and just how quick and fleeting it was. He understood it.
Okay. All right, is there anything you'd like to do? We're just about to switch over, but I just want to see if there's...
I guess preparing his hammer for whatever comes next in the forge process. He lifts the great maul and over his shoulder, ready to swing it to help along the forging process or whatever they're about to do. He knows what's required of him, so he's just preparing his hammer to get to work. He's preparing the great world maker.
As you do this,
Bring truth.
you see Drago raise his head and look directly at you. He kind of scowls a little bit, and he shakes his head twice sharply. He then points over towards the silver anvil, and he nods in that direction once simply. And then he looks at you and he says, "You will be showing the finest expression of your craft. Something delicate and intricate. Put that away and produce your preferred tools." Okay, with this, he goes back to pounding away on the metal that's in front of him. You're still not exactly sure what he has in mind here. As you look over, by the way, at that metal, your first impression is that whatever he seems to be working on, the end has now kind of shaped into something with several serrations and what look to be almost like teeth, but it's still about as thick as like a railroad spike. So you're not sure exactly what's going on there. Okay. With that, we will switch back over. Akama and Ren. What are you guys doing?
Sitting on the staircase watching what's going on.
I am going to check to see if I can figure out what's happening with my drones at the moment. If they're too far out of range for me to be able to monitor them or anything like that. Other than that, I'm doing what Ymir had told me to do, which is keep guard, keep an eye out.
I am going to say that you seem to have lost signal being this far underground and with the nature of the kind of heavy doors.
I'll go to the top of the door and just open it briefly just to see if I can reconnect signal then.
Okay.
Just a quick kind of like I'll probably do that every couple of minutes periodically. Just kind of walk up the steps, kind of like, see if I get a signal, how many bars do I have, and then go back down. And I know once they're far enough out of range, they have their task and they can be out of range of me, but still know how to get back to me. But as far as like if they're close enough in range where I can actually like ping where they're at or actually get a visual from through them, if not, that's
like
fine.
A 3D map.
Okay, so you kind of you want to sprint doing this? You want to just kind of jog? You want to walk? You want to?
Yeah, just like a little jog or a little jaunt up the steps. Just kind of like a up there. Anything? No. Okay, I'll come back down.
40 feet. Okay. Just let me know when you want to head up and down, and we'll work it in that way. I think it'll be easier than me trying to keep like a timed schedule for it. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, but right then and there, I would have done the first quick
Gotcha.
check just to see if
Gotcha.
there was anything, and if there's nothing, I'll head back down.
So you turn and you start dashing up the stairs. As you see your companion turn and start heading up, Akama, what are you doing?
I'm keeping an eye on. Can I see? I can still see inside. It's just barred, yeah.
Yep.
So I'm just keeping an eye on all the forgers. Just seeing like if their movements are different or if they're hiding something, being mischievous. I'm keeping an eye on all of them. I'm just basically my eyes are darting from one to another, just keeping an eye on them.
Go ahead and give me a perception check then. Did we... Wait a minute. We didn't get back to the one you had just gotten the 24 on. Give me 1 second. As he heads up, we'll deal with that. Did you roll another one?
No, you want me to?
Not just yet. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
As you look around, you are seeing a faint mystical energy trail that... Give me just 1 second. This is fine. And we'll just go like that. Okay, so you're essentially seeing some kind of trail along the ground that looks like it's going like this. Okay?
Oh, what the fuck?
Did you see that okay?
I see it. I see it. Yeah.
Okay. So you're noticing that kind of repeating itself over and over in these like slow kind of pulses, and the energy signature doesn't look the same as whatever the magical symbols are that are making up the crucible's like main kind of enchantment. Okay? Whatever that thing is, it looks almost like a magical version of a like snare cord. That's the best way you could describe it. A snare cord. Like something you'd use to snare a rabbit in the forest. You know what I mean? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm gonna look it up.
Like a little it looks like a thin just kind of line that would be used as like a tripwire or something for a snare, but
okay.
It does look like it's laying like flat on the ground. And you're not exactly sure what makes you think it's something like a snare cord. It just doesn't exactly, it's not like chain or rope. It doesn't remind you of any of those. It's just to this enhanced sense you're using, that's the impression you're getting, is it's like, that's it. That's the best I can do with it. So, as you see this, you realize that it's going over into this kind of pile of shit that's over here in the corner. And you're still not really seeing much detail about that. Now, you are pretty convinced that no matter how you position yourself where you're at behind the door, you're really not going to get any kind of good look at that. So, if you'd like to try and make another perception check, you could see if you can get any more detail out of that, or you could spend a second or two looking around at anything else that you're interested in. You had said you were kind of wanting to scope out what the people doing the foraging were doing. If you'd like to make a perception check on that, we could go ahead and move on to that. Or you could try and spend a second on the other.
Yeah, I'll do both of them, but I'll do the right one first, and then I'll be checking the people after.
Okay, go ahead and roll a perception.
Just for that corner.
You see that?
But ouchies. That was
okay.
close, dog.
You're noticing that as you look around at especially the barrels, you're noticing that they look brand new, and they don't even appear as though they've been filled yet. And this stands out a little bit to you, but that would imply that they're probably, if they're unfilled, then they probably don't have much of a purpose down here, and they're probably just put there with the specific purpose of obfuscating what's behind them. If indeed they're empty, it would be a very easy task for a normal human to simply, take 2 minutes and move them aside and access whatever's behind there. Okay?
Got you.
Now, as
Understandable.
far as the boxes, you still aren't sure really what's up with that because they're under these kind of tarps. And what you can see, even when you kind of step to the left a little bit and try and get a little better angle, what you can see of everything behind the boxes is just the tip of like what appears to be more boxes covered by more tarps. So the whole corner just kind of looks like it's all filled with that same kind of thing. Okay. Now go ahead and you can make one more perception check, and we'll say that as you do that, Ren will have just reached the top of the stairs. It just takes him 10 seconds, 15 seconds or something to just kind of jog up the stairs.
Oh, but I was so close again.
Let's say what you are observing of these individuals is that in general, they appear to be all focused and kind of going about whatever this task is, and they seem to know the parts that they're supposed to play. It doesn't seem like a bunch of strangers coming together to do some work. But beyond that, you're picking up a strange feeling that what they're doing is not at all something that they're used to. Because you're noticing people making small movements and doing little things like looking around, kind of looking over their shoulder, going from really focusing on something to kind of, opening an eye and like glancing around. There's small but pretty noticeable little characteristics that are giving away a sense of kind of nervousness and uncertainty. Now, one of the ones that you notice this the most in is this individual. And even though he's currently trying to kind of stand still within that circle and is now trying to focus on the actual spell that seems to be taking place, he is constantly twitching with that violent motion. And as he's doing that, you notice that he has he has that tool in his right hand, and he's actually reaching down to the floor with it, and he's just gently letting his arm just kind of tap it lightly on the floor. And as he's doing this with his hand, that simple motion, it seems as though somehow it's calming these tremors down. And as he does that, just as a kind of unconscious motion, he settles down enough to where it appears like he's actually focused and starting to kind of dial into the spell. You find this interesting. As you continue watching, the only other thing that you quickly notice is that the energy that seems to be emanating from the chain on the floor seems to be becoming more hazy and less kind of focused, and it almost seems like it's sort of powering down and just becoming less of a cohesive spell and more of just kind of like a piece of warm metal that's starting to cool after energy's been channeled through it. Okay, and Ren, as you get to the top of the stairs, you're easily able to open the door. As you do so right away, you're able to link with your drones once more. You quickly scan over any alerts and find that there are none. They don't appear to have picked up any signal whatsoever, or any sign whatsoever on Blitz. And the last pass they made that was within range showed that Wotek was still laying in the same spot, just basically almost looking like he's asleep. Um,
Okay. Then I would want to head back down to Akama and have a quick chat with him.
Are you letting the door close, or are you doing something
Yeah,
to?
no, I would keep it back as it was. Like,
Okay.
It's just gonna be like a periodic kind of like, you know, I guess you could say like a.
Just checking in with it.
Yeah, just kind of. I'll just be doing this periodically just to see if there's any updates.
Okay.
You know, just standing at the steps, I'll be watching most of the time. Probably like every 10 minutes, I'll go up and check or something like that. So I'll run back down to Akama,
Okay.
and I'll be like, so apparently, me missing my meeting, the other evening, my proposition is no longer available due to us apparently being red flagged in a way due to a call, and also concerning the arm that we have.
He slaps his head, like he slaps his forehead a little bit, and be like, "I apologize. This that's terrible. About the arm. What about the arm? What's wrong with it?"
We have people looking for us because of the call that was made.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. He said something about me being like way too attractive to be concerned with. He said something about me being too hot. No, he said that we're too hot of an item at the moment to be dealt with. And it was, I guess, picked up that we had this due to the call that was made. Also, there was a spot I stopped by on the way back that seemed to be another smith, and the clerk there seemed to be very concerned about things going on around the city. I didn't have time to really question him further, but we could always attempt to see what he meant if we think it involves us at all. But,
So you're saying we're like fugitives?
I don't think law enforcement. I think probably some other.
Bounty hunters.
Probably worse than that, I would think. But I don't know. I mean, people we don't want to be. People we don't want to be on the radar of, we are now, essentially. And I'm not sure how easy it is to get off that or to stay under it.
Now, I just want to remind you guys, as you are discussing this, I just want to throw this in, and then I'm going to cut to Ymir, and then we'll cut back. I believe you guys had spoken briefly about the phone call that you had Akama, correct? With Harmony.
Yeah, everybody was in the circle. I gave them a brief understanding of what happened.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page with that. That
Everyone
guys
knows about black blood as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
You would describe
Yeah.
it to us.
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, people are listening in. I'm not sure.
We should leave as soon as possible if that's the case, then, yes?
If not leave, change locations, but I mean, I have a task I need to get done here, but it's not happening now, at least anytime soon, until we die down a bit, so possibly leaving would be the best thing. And in a day and a half, we're supposed to meet with Geiger anyway, so I mean, finish Ymir's task, and I guess we should leave.
Yes, we need to skedaddle.
Just eyes on the back of the head for now.
Also, and I whisper to Ren, also, that guy that looks like a cockroach, on the right side. One of those smithing creatures over there. He apparently has
the goat
something.
boy.
Yeah, he looked like straight
Shit.
like a roach. He has something peculiar in his back pocket. I've seen him getting a little bit of a reading off of it.
Does it seem like a device as far as like mechanical technology?
I don't know what it is, not
is it?
seen it, but I can tell from its aura it's something.
You have your eyes going at the moment.
Correctamundo.
Interesting.
Not sure what it is, but I just figured to let you know, if anything. I also saw something rather odd on the ground that seemed to be kind of like a, how you call it, you know, that thing that I'm trying to remember. Something like it looked like a mystical energy trail that was along the floor going from the forge to where the barrels are. Maybe there's something wild behind that area. It seemed like something rather of interest.
As he says that, ping,
Guys.
please. Yeah, right there.
Guys, sorry. I just have a place marker right there. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
Yep. Probably like a magical fart trail that he left behind.
There's something like right here.
Oh, it's over that side? Okay.
He said that there's something mystical back here, but I can't see past this. All I see is barrels, and then this is just boxes that have tarp on it. I can't see anything. Snare cord. I was looking for the fucking word. Magical snare cord. Make that orange too, shit.
All right, we are back. Okay, guys. I'm sorry. What was being said?
Talking about what I saw and the feeling I got from the corner that I can't see.
Okay.
Letting him know that there's a faint mystical energy trail that's coming from the forge in the middle over to those barrels over there. And it looks like a magical snare cord or something like it.
When he says that, I'll move over here if I can,
Sure.
and I will get this to work.
Gotcha.
I'm in.
Believe in you.
No, too much. God, it's both past 2 times I've had it's been around choppy.
Are you guys using the slider?
I just did, but it still goes like.
I usually just hold down Alt and use the wheel on your mouse. It seems to work a lot better for me. Anyway.
I've done that too, but it's so choppy it skips.
Ah.
All right, so I'll be looking in this direction, and I'll pop my visor down, and if I can cast sense magic.
Okay, go ahead and cast it. Okay. As you cast sense magic and you're trying to open your perception to that general region of the room, you're still trying to look like through boxes and kind of over and around things, and what you're able to perceive through the cracks and spaces that exist is that it seems like there's some kind of fairly large, maybe, I don't know, 9 foot tall, some kind of rectangular, just kind of like mini structure that seems to be emanating some kind of glow from under some of those tarps and stuff back there. What you had taken to be more boxes, you can tell now that there's some kind of, it's some kind of shape, but you can't exactly tell what it is, but you can see it's definitely not, it's not like freight boxes. The enchantment that you are picking up off of it does not seem to be especially powerful, and it doesn't seem to be especially like deadly or hostile or aggressive or dangerous. It's just kind of, it's just sort of a really kind of basic, sort of low level kind of magical field that seems to be emanating from whatever this thing is. Now, the reason you're getting such a general impression is because there's a lot of magical auras kind of popping off of all kinds of shit in this room. And as you gaze around, not only are a lot of the objects giving it off, but now that the participants are in this kind of, you know, spell, this ritual, each one of them is starting to emanate their own kind of level of glow and light under this kind of vision, or in this spectrum, I should say. Other than that, you're able to see the cord now, that same kind of tether cord that Ren or Akama was perceiving, just in a slightly different fashion. To you, it just looks like a hazy kind of muddled knot of threads that seems to be leading from one location into the barrels in front of the other. And you're also now perceiving a pretty strong magical glow, not only from everything that I already described, but in particular from the chain near Ymir's feet. You're now seeing that there is a kind of pulsing, a kind of flare of energy that seems to be almost like dying out, again, like metal that's been heated and is now beginning to cool. That's something that really catches your attention, although, like I said, the crucible is shining brightly, the anvil, and so forth and so on. Other than that, you're not really picking up a lot.
The thing under the tarps and then the thread, are those looking like they're enchanted magically, or does it look like they're actually being cast, or like the spell is being invoked at the moment? Apparently, my sense of magic.
They don't look active. They look, it's like a boulder at the top of a hill. It's potential, but the spell weave and the spell craft is still in place.
It's not actively being used or cast.
Correct. It's not as it has not been triggered. Correct.
Okay. And okay. I'll relay that information to Akama, being like, you know, it doesn't seem like it's active and it doesn't seem necessarily deadly or harmful. And then I'll go back and focus my attention on close attention to the chain by Ymir and just kind of keep an eye on that. Also, am I getting any pings of like, are any of these magics giving off different auras or colors of magic that may show any interest, or any red flags, or just, I mean, am I seeing any purple glows?
Interesting. I would not say that you are picking up anything that seems necessarily like evil from any of the main kind of sources of magic that are radiating in this room.
Or at least as far as my understanding is of them.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're picking up anything malicious necessarily from any of the sources you can see. I will say that the kind of restricted, relatively benign energy fields you see emanating from the individuals within the room, there is something that seems off about Drago's aura. You wouldn't necessarily say evil, but there's something. Go ahead and give me a perception roll. And Ymir, don't worry, we're about to come over to you. I'm preloading a bunch of time for what you're going to be doing, just so you know. Yeah, go ahead and make a perception roll and okay. I'm gonna say you get the impression from his aura that it almost looks like it's not reading correctly. There seems something almost like false about his aura. And you can't quite put your finger on it, but that is enough to make something really stand out. And the other one that you take notice of is there we go. Token is this individual. You're actually seeing a slight hint of almost like a malicious kind of aura emanating from him, along with a very, very low level resonant field of some kind of dark enchantment. You are not familiar with its type. You don't really have any more detail than that, but there is something about him that you're getting a strong impression of a kind of malicious intent or personality, and you're seeing that clouded by something about this individual that has to do with some kind of dark magic. That is also being clouded by the overall just kind of cacophony of auras that are shining in this spectrum right now in front of you. So there's just a lot of layers of kind of confusing information coming in, but that's the general gist of it.
All right. I'll relay this again to Akama.
Okay.
And then, I'll take a couple steps back into the shadows of the stairwell, and I'm just going to be focusing on Goat Boy. And if I catch anything that seems a little bit more off or more intense of that malicious type aura that I'm getting, I will draw my weapon and just wait. But as for now, I'm just watching.
Okay. So you are on high alert and ready to go. Good shit.
Yes, and I'm trying to slink back into the shadows a bit, so less noticed. Like I, hopefully out of sight, so I can still see, but they won't be able to see me as well, or won't be able to see me at all if they don't have night vision or whatever, or dark vision.
Okay.
I'm just gonna try to stay in the shadows as much as possible, and just trying to silently watch him specifically. But I would have explained to Akama the confusion of the aura around Drago, and then the slightly malicious aura that I'm getting. And I would have quickly said probably too, I don't know how your eyes work, but are you picking any of this up at all, or?
And you can go ahead and respond to that, and then Akama, I'm also gonna, if you just want to throw in one or two small quick actions, that will fill in all the time that Ren wasn't talking to you and catch us up to kind of current, and then I can move Ymir up with, he's going to have a couple of minutes worth of stuff he's going to kind of mess around with. So is there anything you want to respond with, and is there a couple of like small things you want to do or say in addition to that?
As I look back toward Draco, I don't remember. Am I having the same idea as he's seeing? Because I felt like his was just more of a blinding mystical in the area because where he is.
For the way that I usually kind of interpret all of this is that the different kinds of spells are going to just kind of give you different sensory perceptions of things.
I think that.
And so he's seeing more of kind of hazy fields and auras and colors,
Okay.
and you're more like you're seeing the electric lines through the walls kind of shit. You know what I mean?
So I will relay the information saying that I looked around and I seen a bunch of mystical things. Uh, the Forge Master had more of like a flickering, short-circuiting aura, but it was very weak to a certain extent. So I guess your haziness picked up something, but not as strong as this third eye. But the only thing that I really got from the goat looking like gentleman thing, humanoid creature cockroach looking mother. No, anyway, that guy, uh, I don't know. That the only thing that I could pick up was more of his pocket. That just kept attracting me to it.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna keep my eyes on Draco and the other gentleman. I think it was Anu. Ahab.
Okay. All right. Okay, so you keep your eyes on him. He seems pretty much to be doing exactly what the others seem to kind of be doing now, which is just sort of channeling mystic energy. He's got his head kind of bowed slightly. He is still carrying that kind of spike of metal. You're seeing that spike, it now is reading as a little bit magical in the very center, almost like there's a little pinprick of extreme heat right in the very middle of the shaft of it. And it slowly seems to be getting hotter from the middle out as you're watching. So you would guess that whatever's going on, it's getting infused with some kind of magical energy.
Do I know, like, do I get the idea of what they're crafting? Like, do I see like I don't know, axe head or maybe like a weapon itself? Does any of
No,
these objects they're holding seem like something I would
not yet. You can't.
pick up?
No. It's you're even really trying to kind of get creative with it. You're just not sure yet.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay, good. So, Ymir. Very quickly, let me just get a time check from you guys. How much longer do we have here?
Half an hour.
Yeah, same.
Okay. All right, excellent. Okay, so as you were told to put the World Maker away and produce your tools for your kind of finer work, what would you like to do? I see you've kind of stepped over there. Now, as this happens, you see that your companions are kind of discussing things quietly behind the gate. So you begin walking over there, I assume, and tell us what you do.
Indeed. Ymir follows Drago's orders, at least for now, and sees the great maul on his back, slings it back over his shoulder, and goes to his large pack where his much more finer smithing tools are located. So let me check. Got it here in backpack. So, yep. Ymir removes his pack and produces the hammer, the tongs.
Okay, the silver ones, or the golden ones, I think it is.
The golden, yes, the golden tongs that are customary with his people when they deal with much more finer smithing rather than something that would take as much magic as the world hammer would put into something. And it's much more forceful when you use the world hammer. It's about almost breaking the metal spirit when you use the world maker, and so this is a finer, a more finesse filled piece of work. So he removes his pack and sets it down very close to him, basically at his feet, directly at his feet, and starts removing the finer tools and preparing for whatever comes next.
Okay. As you do this, you quickly kind of get your gear stored. You want to go ahead and remove your pack and get it kind of set to the side. Is there any other changes to like how the kind of gear, how you're set up that you want to do, or?
No, he's just he set down the pack at his feet, removed his tools, and he's preparing to strike or whatever
Okay.
needs to be done for the next part of the ritual. He's preparing for work finally.
So you get all set up. Okay.
Right.
Just really quickly, where would you like to set the majority of your gear? Am I wrong in assuming maybe like over here? Where would that?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that square right on my left, directly where my token is. If you look at the square directly to the left of him, like right next to the anvil, pretty much. But
right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, good. So your gear is all still within reach. It's all just sitting right there.
Right.
You do notice that there is a kind of beautiful godlight coming down through that hole that's illuminating some of that strange kind of shining lichen in the corner. And
Since it's forested, is there a sense of what is Ymir feeling being in the aura or the presence of this particular section? Is there any reaction from him?
as you look down and are really taking in the sight of the anvil, you notice this sunlight kind of reflecting off of it from behind. And as it does so, it's just putting this brilliant kind of fucking spray of color, of kind of pure white and silverish light, little lasers of just the brightest kind of light all across that rear wall. And as it's doing so, it reminds you of some of your younger days when you were just learning to kind of perfect your craft, and the very personal and kind of spiritual relationship you formed with your tools and your anvil, and it just really makes you reflect on the kind of deep tradition, and spiritual aspect to this particular skill and craft. And as you're taking all of this in, you notice that the name, now that you're closer, the name has a deep, savage gash going diagonally straight across the entire length of the name. And this looks as though it was done with some kind of almost like some kind of rusty implement, because all along the gash, that entire section is pocked with little spots and sprouts of rust, and discoloration. You look further at the anvil and you notice that other than that, it seems to be in perfect working order. And because it's not on the top, the actual face of it, it shouldn't have any real impact. But you find this strange. You've never seen a Kuznia that's still in good standing have a strike through like this. And what this mark denotes to you in your experience is that the owner of this to whom it was bonded and forged by, this particular anvil, its owner has been disgraced and has now fallen from the Kuznia, and has been basically forbidden to practice their arts, and has lost their connection to, forgive me if I mispronounce this, Severog?
Savarog, yep. that's
Savarog,
close.
who is kind of, long story short, who is kind of the patron god of this particular kind of smith, this group that you belong to. Would you say that's fairly accurate? I don't want to completely...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, yes, I would say that, especially when he talked about before in our initial meeting with the blood price on his head. You don't get a blood price as a Kuznia unless you've fallen from grace, as it were.
Yeah. So you definitely get the sense that this is, this is a almost like decommissioned unit now. So as you're taking in these details, you see that the anvil has actually been lifted several feet and placed upon a higher pedestal to accommodate your large frame. And as you stand there, Lars moves forward, and on this side collects the different tools that had been laying out on that piece of cloth. As he wraps them up, he heads over here and deposits them onto this desk. He then comes and stands next to you and your gear, and he kind of looks up at you and just kind of nods solemnly. You get the impression he's just kind of making himself available if you're wanting to ask something. Like, it looks like he's about to head back over and probably join this circle again, and he's just kind of pausing for a moment and looking at you to see if there's something you do. Almost like he's doing it partially on his way, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, Ymir sees this as he's slowly inspecting his tools, his own tools that he pulled out of the pack. Because of this insight he feels in this area, the anvil concerns him slightly, but just the aura of where he is at makes him feel a deep sense of tradition and respect for his tools, where as he's taking them out slowly, he runs his hand across the hammer like it's an old friend of his that he hasn't talked to in a long time. There's it's almost like he's in a purifying ritual himself. Not really, there's nothing magical about it, but just with him, it's like reacquainting himself with his old friend. And he looks at Lars, and he looks down at the name crossed out, and just to confirm again, he kind of looks back over his shoulder at Drago through one eye. He kind of moves the one eye with his peripheral, like, did this used to belong to Drago?
Okay, and just subtle and smooth as snail snot, he just continues walking through and just does a slight nod as he walks past you. Just kind of closes his eyes and does just a very, very imperceptible nod to anybody else in the room.
Then a sense of sorrow sort of grips Ymir, because he's used to being in combat with people like that. Most of the time, fallen Kuznia, especially ones that were known by the Vana, are usually are usually in good standing. And so it's not very often that you see an intact anvil from a Kuznia that has had their fall from grace, as it were.
Very true. Okay, now as As Lars is walking
Okay.
by, anything else you wanna
No.
do? You
No.
sure? Okay. All right. So he continues on, takes up a place about here. Actually, at this point, he moves to about where you were into that circle.
Mm-hmm.
And he begins kind of a slow chant, bowing his head, now just joining in. Now,
Do I
As-
recognize the language at all?
no, you don't.
No?
You would
Okay.
actually guess that this is less of an actual language as audible spell components specific
Okay.
to this kind of
Makes
ritual.
sense.
Okay?
Makes sense.
So as each of these individuals begins to just slowly mumble and chant, and the rings around them begin to become perceptibly brighter, you see Drago as you look over your shoulder. You see Drago nodding over to. Oops, sorry. Nodding over to this individual, and in a low, gruff voice, he says, "Ahab, hurry." And as you look over at that individual, you see that the shaft of metal that he's holding is now about that bright. It's quite intensely glowing and seems to be kind of charged up with quite a bit of power. You can also see some kind of dark markings on the side of it, but you're not sure what it is from this distance. I will say that both Ren and Akama are watching that same thing happen at, roughly the same time as they're looking on. You guys are both noticing that that shaft of metal has started heating up, and you're watching while it's continuing to expand. Ymir,
How long has passed since I came back downstairs?
we're gonna say I'm gonna give about 30 seconds more, and then you guys should all about be caught up.
Oh, okay, so this is all happening like when I went upstairs and back down.
Correct. I wanted to
Conversation.
to make sure to get through a little chunk.
Well, no, that's fine. I wasn't sure if this was like a slow process of like kind of like ritual, kind of like very slowly moving, or if we were just.
It's building up in tempo, but you wouldn't guess this is necessarily something that's like, I mean, it seems like everything's kind of moving along relatively quickly, so
Sure. Just trying to get the pace. Yeah.
no worries at all. So Ymir, as Lars takes up his position and all of this happens with Ahab and Drago, you see Drago kind of put some effort into it, and this bar really flares to life a second time. Now there's clear kind of like flares of energy coming off of it, and you would guess that he's close to having done what he needed to do in the process. You still see that the strange humanoid individual appears to just be tapping his stick on the ground, and just continuing to apparently feed energy into the situation. Okay. As you stand there, Drago nods to Ahab in apparent satisfaction with the job he's done, and Ahab lets out kind of a exhausted, just a bit of a sigh of relief. He seems pretty taxed by what happened. He slowly walks his way around and comes to stand next to you. As he takes up his position, he very ritualistically and respectfully reaches out with a lot of veneration and slowly places that glowing spike upon the anvil. As he does so, you can now see that there appears to be again, in what you recognize as Russian, but you can't tell what it says, there's some kind of Russian lettering across the side of it. As you look at it, go ahead and make a perception roll.
Right.
Okay, as you look at the lettering, you're trying to figure out if it's the same or different from what is on the side of the anvil, because they're literally right next to each other, so it's an easy thing to try and get a reference to. And as you do so, unfortunately, the whole thing just gets all jumbled up, and you just cannot seem to understand even if there's similarities between them or not. It's also, and being struck through also makes it much more difficult. So, all right. So as you're standing there and the spike is placed down, you hear it kind of sizzling against the surface, humidity that's accumulated on the anvil itself, and you see small pops of steam and mist rising up from the silvery surface. As you look down, you realize that this almost surely is not any kind of weapon, and you quickly realize that it's about the same proportions and dimensions as what Drago himself was working on when last you checked in on him. Although, as stated, his had already become deformed at the end, gaining some what looks like serrations and teeth. Okay, as it's set down and you're gazing upon it, you grip your tools tightly in hand, and Drago bellows out to you, "Smith!" apparently beckoning you to face him.
Ymir listens and turns his full attention towards the Forge Master.
Okay, as you stare at him, he holds up what he holds in his hand, which has now been shaped even further. And what he points at you is a long, metallic, glowing key, the end of which looks more like a jagged, serrated knife tip than something made for opening a door. But nonetheless, with the simple and crude loop that's been set to its back, the front is unmistakable for some kind of key. He points it at you and then holds it up in front of you vertically and says, "A key to my power as a Forge Master." Then he points it at you and lowers his eyebrows and looks at you almost menacingly. And he says, "Now craft one from your ability, tied to your patron, to Severog himself." And then he just simply nods at you as to set you to your task, as if to set you to your task. Okay. Are you good there for just a second?
Indeed.
Okay. So let's switch back over. Akama and Ren, as you guys are looking at all of this, you see him raise what obviously to both of your senses is some kind of mystical key, and you hear him shout over. He is speaking in English, by the way. You hear him shout over to Ymir those words. As this is happening, is there anything you guys would like to do? Akama, as you're watching this individual, the strange humanoid, you do not see him doing anything at all out of character yet. He seems to just be continuing on.
Yeah. Alright, good to go.
Okay. Ren, is there anything you're doing?
I'm just focusing on fucking Goat Boy and making sure he's not doing anything weird, but I'm also focusing on my sense magic to make sure that there's nothing changing really with that.
Okay. As this is happening, you guys see this Forge Master Drago. You see him shout across to where you're standing behind the doors. And he shouts over to you, "You are not to interfere unless you are beckoned."
Suck my dick. No, I'm just...
He says,
I don't say that. I don't say that.
he says, "If you break the sanctity of this room with your presence, you will ruin any chance at salvaging a favorable outcome. You will also endanger all of us as well as your companion." He says this just very curtly and then quickly moves on and begins focusing on Ymir again. Does anybody say anything or do anything?
I'm sitting back, holding, like, ready to pull my weapon in case Goat Boy does anything weird. But I am trying to respect Ymir as much as possible. But I've got a very uneasy feeling. I don't think the music from the Roll20 is helping me at all. I feel like I'm in the Temple of Doom and he's getting ready to rip a heart out. So
I'll take that as a compliment. Right on.
I'm just Ren is just on edge. He listened and he's like, okay, but still more of focus is still on Goat Boy and being like,
All right.
being like, basically thinking to himself, please don't fucking do anything because I don't want to fuck this up for Ymir, but I will if I have to, or I feel I have to.
All right. Okay, so everybody is just kind of pensively waiting, and as everyone's standing around, and Drago focuses back on Ymir, he says to you, actually he steps around the kind of counter that he's at the Crucible, and he uses one massive booted foot to kick the end of this chain right here where the large locking kind of loop is set up. And you realize that this thing is scaled big enough that it definitely could attach, you're not sure about to your wrist, but it could definitely attach to you. It's made for that size of humanoid. He kicks it carelessly and kind of roughly with his boot and looks up at you and says, "If you lose control, my men will shackle and bind you to render you complacent and calm. Any rogue element in this ritual will send flares of magical energy throughout this room that will destroy us all." He says, "This is high stakes, and I expect you to not cry off unless you absolutely must. It may be a difficult binding and forging process, and I know that you are accustomed to pain and tribulation as part of our craft." With this, he raises a single eyebrow and just kind of seems to inquire with a look, "Are you prepared? And do you agree?"
Ymir, looking back at the Forge Master very seriously at what he just said, looks at him and goes, "I am Vidar's chosen. I am the Bjornkin. I will not fail in my tasks. We had an agreement. I shall not lose control as long as the sanctity of this room, as you say, is respected.
Okay. At this, he seems satisfied and he nods to you. Okay. With this, he turns back to each of his subordinates and kind of nods at them each, kind of gruffly, almost angrily. And as he does this, they all simultaneously begin chanting much more loudly. You see that Ahab seems to have retreated back over to the crucible. And he looks over. Ahab looks over at this individual.
Cockroach goat boy.
And he yells, Shaker! Shaker, quit your goddamn tapping! As he does so, the tapping stops immediately from this individual, and both of you see a slight pulse of energy come from him as he does so. Unfortunately, without this kind of mental kind of technique, he once again begins trembling really, really badly and starting to kind of get jerked all over the place by his own body's movements.
That muffled twitch that you were saying like horses have?
Correct. It's that extreme kind of skin twitching kind of movement. And you would guess that that is definitely linked to the strange kind of mutated musculature that you see him display. As he starts trembling, you see that his mystical energy seems to kind of dim and short circuit a little bit and start becoming a little less stable and more chaotic. But other than that, he continues. He's just having to press a lot more effort into it now. Okay, as this goes on for several seconds, you can hear their chanting starting to increase in the background. And Forge Master Drago is now singing some kind of really deep, melodic, it almost sounds like a hum, it's so low, but it's some kind of chanting song that seems to be rousing the others into a sense of timing and communion. And you see that the crucible is starting to flare with an enhanced level of energy, as well as each of the rings around the individuals starting to become much, much brighter and starting to actually become opaque at the bottom so that you can't see through the bottom of the energy field. Let's see. And that only extends up about a foot, but it's noticeable. Okay, Ymir, you stand before the forge. You stand before the silver anvil. You feel the kind of harmonic vibration emanating from it as it resonates with the metal of the spike. The energies seem to be coming into sync, but you know that through your actions and your art, you will forge them, bending them to unite into whatever your will desires. So as you hold your tools in hand and face the anvil, what would you like to do?
Falling away in sort of a trance-like state because of just what smithing means to the not only to the Kuznia but to the Vana in general. Ymir is just hyper focused on his task at hand. He's feeling the energy. The harmonic magic reminds him of very much how the Vana do magic and how they perceive the whole magical realm. So it puts him in a focused state, and he is ready to perform his task.
Okay. All right. As you feel the energy kind of coalesce into your hands and into your muscles, it begins flowing through your the fiber of your being, and you can feel arcane, almost reservoirs within your spirit, releasing this energy that's building up within you, a communion between you and the great forge master of your craft, the god, if you will, of this art. And as you begin that kind of holiest of communion and make that connection with him, go ahead and just simply open your percentile die roller, or open your dice roller, and do a D100 roll. You're trying to get low.
There we go. Just one.
Yep. 1D100. Okay. As you start trying to channel these energies properly, you feel some kind of disharmony, some dissonance that almost feels like metaphysical interference. You're not sure where exactly it's coming from, but it's taking you a little longer than you would anticipate, and a moment slips by as you continue trying to perfectly attune your senses with the kind of frequency that you need. I do want to say, guys, do we have another like 5 minutes or so, or should we go ahead and wrap it up right here?
I could go 5.
Finish the situation.
Okay, just making sure.
We should be done.
Okay, so as you are concentrating, nothing else really is changing in the room for anybody. You put another kind of burst of effort into it. Go ahead and roll a percentile again. 1D100. Okay, this time you're able to completely secure the connection, and as you do so, everyone in the room sees bright, kind of scarlet light erupt from Ymir's eyes outward in like 3 or 4 foot long kind of beams. As this light emits, there's a kind of energy and crackling surge of red glow around his eye sockets. As he looks up with this light emitting from him, he almost seems to go into some kind of trance as his arms go slack at his sides. Slowly, he seems to regain his senses, bends over the anvil, and picks up the piece of metal with his golden tongs, raises his golden hammer in the air, and as he begins chanting some unknowable language, some kind of communion with his god, his hammer comes down in a thunderous eruption of sparks upon the shaft of metal. As moments expectantly tick by, the shaft of metal slowly is bent and shaped into an almost exact replica of the one that Drago holds himself. Once this key-like instrument is finished, the light seems to leave Ymir's eyes and he seems to come back to his senses. Now, Ymir, as you look down and around and now seem to hold this newly forged key, you realize that this is a direct connection, an antenna, if you will, that leads directly to the source of all Mystic Kuznia's ability. And what you hold in your hand is a very potent and powerful quasi artifact-like item. As you look at it, you see that it is extremely finely crafted and is indeed some of the best work not only have you ever produced, but that you've ever seen. As you hold it in your hand, you begin to feel a very, very strong resonance thrumming and vibrating through your arm. And as you seem to move the key in a direction, an arc around the room, you feel that it becomes extremely strong once it's pointed at Drago. Drago has now walked over and is now approaching next to you. As he approaches, he takes up position next to you, next to the anvil, and he holds his key up. He looks at you, and you see that there's bright, glistening beads, huge beads and bullets of sweat on his face. And you see that it's not from work or labor, it's from excitement. His face is now lit up like a child on Christmas morning in the old Earth lore. As he looks over at you, he stares at the key almost greedily and begins kind of biting his lip over and over with expectation. As he looks at the anvil, he then looks up at you and very hurriedly, he nods towards the anvil, and he says to you lowly, "Put the key in the scar. Turn it and unlock it, and your job is done, Smith. But remember, keep control." With
Oh, I
this,
thought
the
that's-
entire room is just waiting.
My jaws to the ground, like, oh.
Judging how you like to end sessions, I thought that was it. I thought it would be, and that's
Go
where
for
we're
it.
gonna pick it up
No,
next time.
go for it. We still got a second here.
Hit it.
It's up to you. I'm not trying to pigeonhole you into something, but this is where we're at.
Would you mind if we pick this up next time?
I don't mind at all, bro. That just means
Yeah.
you really want to think about it. That's fine.
Yep.
All right, guys.
Yep.
That's where we'll go ahead and wrap it.
All right.
Hell of a cliffhanger. All right.
Got to
During this
keep
time-
the boys coming back next week, right?
During this time,
And now, bow your head for the patrons. BKZJT, Rapid 3642. Andy Sasa, Nova Rose, Kerry T, Tommy Gunn. The Z24 Colts, Jess H. It's. If you would like a special thank you at the end of each of my videos, and some other cool stuff as well, visit patreon.com/homegrown lore. Thank you.